We're going.
We're live.
We're live. We're live.
Alrighty.
So, what are we talking about today? It sparked from a minute ago, but
Yeah. Well, it sparked
You've
from our
got-
conversation last week, right?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, introduce yourself.
All right. I'm Nate. Nate Duell, longtime friend of Kyle, really longtime friend of your sister.
Yes.
And
true.
then you were just like that older big brother that was too cool to hang out with.
So, let me ask you this, because me and Jordan would always go back and forth with this. Like, was I referred to as Jordan's brother, or was she referred to as Kyle's sister?
Oh no. Well, because it was between Britt and Jordan, right? Like
Yeah.
Britt and Jordan were my duo. And
Yeah.
so we were the trio, the three of us. And so Jordan is Kyle's sister. Brittany is my current wife, who I've known since like 5th grade, right? And so we were like the three amigos. And you were the older brother that was way too cool to hang out with. But you were also with the older group of the older Hallex, Keith.
Oh yeah.
You had like the older guys that like,
Yeah.
I think I even got into playing bass just to be able to hang out with you guys.
Oh really?
And you should know how horrible I was and am at that. And I was never could play anything, but it felt cool.
But I tried.
Remember the garage bands we had in my parents' garage?
I do remember that.
And actually, I think there's still a video of that Skillet song, Whispers in the Dark, in my old bedroom. And remember we made like that bed stage. It was a wooden stage in my room.
Yeah.
And we had like your drum kit up there and everything. Yeah, you see Eric Krieger was in that one too, I remember. That was wild times.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Like I forgot a lot about all of that.
Dude, yeah. Good times.
Yeah.
Good times.
Awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I'm Nate.
And that's all anybody's gonna
I was gonna say,
hear about you. So how I generally do this is we'll do like, I want the content to be first, because I feel like the value is in the content.
Yeah.
And I don't really want to introduce who the person is until at the end.
Okay.
Like, what are their credentials?
Sure.
Because I don't want the value of the conversation to be lost and only dependent on who the person is.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, yeah.
Like there's value in the conversation that doesn't need to be masked by, well, they haven't done as much as the last guy, or they've done more than the last person. So
Right.
like I'm gonna weigh the value of the conversation on who the person
on
is.
The content. Yeah. Well, I think you said that in a few episodes. That all right, 4 seconds of who you are because nobody cares. And get to the content. And I was like nodding my head as I'm listening to that. I'm like, that's true. No one really cares.
Get to the point.
Yeah.
So, but this, I mean, we talked for what, 45 minutes on the phone the other day?
Yeah, last week we did. Yeah.
And it was you said something that was like, oh, that's good.
Yeah, you were like, that is gold of the day right there. I was like, well, you have a podcast. By the way, what episode is this?
Oh, for this season, 1, 2, 3, 4. This will probably be episode 5.
Okay.
For this
season 2.
Yeah.
I'll try not to take it personally.
Yeah.
That I wasn't in season 1. You had Matt Solom on episode 1, season 1, Joey Halleck in episode 2. It's cool. No, it's cool. I'm the afterthought. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so last week, I guess, and
we were talking about real estate investments.
Yeah.
Which is what initially got it started.
Yeah.
And is that where, like, did we stay on that conversation, or did we get somewhere?
I feel like that's most of the conversation, because you and I have talked about, doing different real estate deals, or at least looking at them together.
Yeah.
And I've only been in real estate for a few years, but like, that's just been I've always wanted to.
Yeah.
And I saw my parents do it. My siblings do it. Uncle owns half of Traverse City, and always wanted to. And like, it's a huge passion of mine.
Yeah. And
I finally did. I dove into it, like, I don't know, 2019, 2020 area. And I get asked a lot of, well, what if, or what could go wrong, or, oh, aren't you scared about having to, have your tenant call you at 3 a.m, or whatever, right?
Because that's a lot of excuse that most people get into. Is the biggest one is like, well, I don't want to have to clean, fix a toilet at whatever time. I don't want to deal with toilets. And it's like, all right, like, if that's the biggest thing that's holding you back from, like, we see where you're at now.
Yeah, well, I forget who, but it was some psychologist or whatnot, was saying that we as humans in general, we're really good at coming up with the negatives. Like just naturally, we can come up with negatives way easier than we can come up with positives.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's true. Like, so his thought, or, you know, how to basically beat that is, okay, write down the negative, because we're so good at coming up with that. Write down the negative.
Right.
And then right across from that, write down the opposite of what that negative is you just wrote down. Right. So if the negative is, yeah, they're going to call me at 3 a.m. Well, the opposite is maybe they won't. Right. Maybe they'll call you at 3 p.m. Right. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, if you look at the negatives, it's very easy to not have the courage to do something. It's way too easy. Right. And we as humans are very good at that. And I mean, you're missing so much if you don't think of, well, the positives can outweigh it. Right. Like if you're just going to live in fear of, I can't jump into this or do it with any industry because of the what ifs. Well, what if it goes really well?
If it goes well. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
I mean, you're going to run into just random hardships, but if the numbers work, right, and your passion's there, the numbers don't lie, and your passion should outweigh it. Right. I mean, to where, yeah, you're going to run into stuff. You're going to run into, I mean, I have 2 kids and 1 on the way. You're going to run into stuff, right? Like,
I mean, I think that's part of like the entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
Is you see a potential and you figure out how it will work, and you try to talk yourself into it versus talk yourself out of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's, I think there's a big separation of people and just how you think.
Huge.
You know, because, and when you get into these conversations with people, it's like one person wants to convince the other that they're right. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, it's not that either of you are right or wrong. You're both correct in your own mindset.
Yeah. There's the right person for the job.
Yes, you are correct in what you're thinking. You are correct in what you're thinking. It's just, which one do you want to go for more?
Right.
Which one is more important to you?
Yeah. That's because most people are that 9 to 5 punch the clock, just do their thing. Right.
And if that's what they want,
that's what we're bred to do. That's what in school and high school, you name it. Like, we're not taught real world. We're taught how to be an employee. Right. We're not taught how to be a CEO. We're not. We're not. I mean, think about it. Like,
no, I'm laughing.
I'm told to solve X on this random math equation, or have to know how to dissect a cat, which, don't get me wrong, was kind of fun. But like, what is that really going to get me unless I'm doing taxidermy? Right.
Well, it's funny you say that, because the reason I'm laughing is because it's such a controversial topic. Yeah. You know, it's like, oh, the school system's messed up, which I agree with. Yeah. Because it doesn't. Yes. And if you go back in history, I can't remember where, I want to say it was,
you think of Rich Dad Poor Dad?
No, I'm thinking, I want to say it was Andy Frisella's podcast. I was listening, they were talking about it, just kind of like the evolution of education, how it started, where it came to be, like it, you know, it started in to train people how to set themselves up to work in manufacturing. Yeah.
Just to punch a clock, like be a good employee, right? Punch the clock, go home, do it again. Yep. And I think that's that. And that's what most people do. Yeah. And they just kind of go through life, and then they hope and expect that just simply doing the normal thing will get them to a retirement that they can rely on. And way too often that doesn't happen, right? Like, they relied on Social Security. Yeah. And it's a big generational difference though too. Yeah. Like, I mean, I've been working with retirees now for over 7 years, and it's horribly sad, but no joke. I would say I have more money, if you have, or anybody does, if you have $2,000 in your bank account or any asset, than probably 60% of the retirees around here.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. Like, it's a joke. I mean, obviously I'm just throwing numbers out there, but like, I've done it for 7 years, and I'm telling you, there are so many people that rely on the state, like Medicaid programs, or they just rely on Social Security, and that's all they have. And they get to retirement and realize their Social Security check's $1,100.
Well, what do they think it was?
Now what do I do? Right. And it's like, well, that's why you see so many older people still working at all of these restaurants and all this stuff we go to on a daily basis. Yeah. They're working because they didn't do the proper planning to get where they need to be. And that's a huge generational difference, because we today, I mean, you can pull out a cell phone. Yeah. And in 13 seconds, we can invest $5. Yeah. 5,000, whatever. Huge generational difference with the power in our pocket, that we don't have that excuse that like the older generations had a little bit, but obviously an excuse is still
an excuse. Do you think that and maybe this would be a better question to ask somebody that's in that retired space, but do you think it's part of that is due to the amount of information that we have available now? Because you've heard it talked about like this is the age of information or the generation of information, something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you think it's they didn't have the information available to them, or they weren't willing to figure it out?
Good question. I mean, honestly, it's probably a little bit of both. It was a little harder to figure it out because you didn't have Google at your fingertips, right?
Yeah.
So it did take a lot more work or reading, like an actual book.
Yeah.
Which,
well, because like I don't know what your social media feed looks like, but mine is basically if it's not something to do with excavating, paving, investing, or mindset, like that's how my feed is. And so it's like, well, I didn't ask to learn how to like figure out another way to generate passive income, but here it is.
Right. The algorithms get feeding you. Yeah. It's feeding you.
I didn't ask for this, but sure, I'll take it. Like that.
Yeah. No, I mean, you name it. I mean, that's huge that we're literally getting fed it, whether we even really wanted to or not.
Yeah.
We're getting snippets every day.
Yeah.
And it's a huge difference that, our parents and grandparents were told, hey, Social Security just started in like the 60s, right? Yeah. So, hey, Social Security, you're going to contribute to it. It'll be there in retirement. Well, sweet. But what they didn't realize was that if you didn't put some into your 401 or into a pension or into your own IRA at that time, you get to retirement realizing, wait, I only have Social Security and it's not as much as I wanted it to be.
Right.
Now what?
Right.
Right. And they're screwed. I feel like that's,
anyway. Well, and what I'm thinking about is because you should know what numbers are relative to another number.
Yeah.
Same thing with running the numbers on a real estate investment.
Yeah.
Okay, like, sure, this sounds great, but compared to what other numbers? Is it actually a good deal or is it not?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's just kind of knowing what you're getting into before you blindly go into it.
Yeah.
The same thing with Social Security is, all right, if you're going to get $1,100 a month, compared to what?
Sure. Yeah. And that's where numbers are very relative. Right. Well, because I mean, I do this.
Like but even back then, you have no excuse.
Yeah. No, I mean, and excuses are we allowed to swear in this episode? Let's say excuses are like assholes. We all have them.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Some of them stink worse than others. Yes. Right. But no, it's true. Yeah. The excuses are there. And I'll give you an example. So I even wrote this down.
Okay.
Because I'll never forget this. But I wrote this down for this conversation, essentially, to where the ignorance of like the common investor or the common person in general. Okay. So true story, right? This is in a town just south of here, basically.
Okay.
I met with this lady in regards to like retirement planning, retirement needs, whatever, right? With her and her husband. Her husband was actually at work at the time, but I'm sitting with this lady and the house is, for lack of better terms, pretty gross. Like she doesn't do anything really as far as like maintain it or clean it. I mean, there's literally flies everywhere and there's just 2 liters of Coke bottles everywhere. Like literally just 50 plus of them just everywhere, half full, empties, you name it. And we got to talking about retirement and she's complaining about her Social Security check being low. Right. And I'm like, okay, well, sure. Without rubbing salt in the wound, whose fault is that? Right.
Yeah.
And I get it, right? Maybe you're disabled or you couldn't work or you're a homemaker, whatever, right? But she has a husband who's working full-time at Menards. Okay. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, do they offer a 401? She goes, yeah, they do. I'm like, awesome. So what do they match? She goes, they'll match up to, I forget the percentage. She's like, 5% or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, awesome. So are you putting in the 5 to make sure that you get 5% for free? Like literally free money. They're going to match it.
Right.
She goes, well, no, we can't afford that. And I just kind of looked at her and was like, are you serious? Like you're going to pay everybody else's bills, but not pay yourself first.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's the foundation for having a future that's actually worth looking for. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't mean to be an ass, but like none of us want to be in poverty, right? Like none of us want to struggle.
None of us want to be, but none of us want to work to change it either.
Right. So I look at her and I go, most people, what do you mean you can't afford it? I was like, we're literally talking, if you did $5 a week, and the company matched $5 a week, you're now able to put away $10 a week.
Right.
And I did the numbers,
which is $520 a year.
Yeah. So get this, $5 a week. The company matches it, right? So you have $10 total.
Yeah.
If you had that for 40 years at like a 7% return, like a modest return rate, the S&P average is like 11, but a modest 7% return. I looked at it and I actually was just spitballing these numbers, but I proved myself right afterward.
Yeah.
I go, you'd have over $100,000 right now in his 401k, and you probably wouldn't be here complaining about how much money or how much little money you had.
Yeah.
And she looks at me and just like stares, and her jaw kind of hit the ground. And I was like, it's that level of ignorance, really. I mean, and I look at her, I go, see all these 2 liters?
Yeah.
I go, you realize that the cost that you're spending on these pops every week, you would have $100,000 or more right now.
Right.
Had you put $5 away, I go, you wouldn't even notice that on his paycheck. $5 a week, you wouldn't even notice it.
Yeah.
Because the company's going to give you that, they're going to match that.
Right.
I go, that is over $100,000 right now that you might be able to retire. He might be able to retire.
Yeah.
And then you can draw off of that. You can have a guaranteed income off of that with different possibilities.
Yeah.
And she's just sitting there kind of staring at me like, he used my Coke against me. Coke means Coca-Cola.
Yes.
Coca-Cola. And I'll just never forget that, because she literally was just so adamant that they couldn't afford it. And I gave it to her in real terms of, you're literally like, buy 2 liters less a week.
Yeah.
And they'd have over 100,000 right now. And she's literally complaining because I think she made like, $900 on Social Security. So her husband had to work. And he's in his 60s still having to work and punching the clock, but not, again, they're going to be in the same rabbit hole. They're going to be in that same downward spiral because they're obviously not teaching their kids or their grandkids how to do it right, or how to learn from that experience. He's having to work into his 60s and possibly 70s now because they didn't do something so simple that is a Starbucks coffee a week.
Yeah.
And don't get me started on that overpriced coffee.
But... Well, most likely she's pissed mostly because it's like, why didn't I do something before? Because you can't get pissed at anybody but yourself. Like, you're just delivering truth at this point.
They do try to point the finger and pass the buck that,
I'm sure,
poor me, whatever, right?
Poor me, but like, look, it's really not poor you, because every action up to this point was justified why you didn't have to do what you should have done.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's justified, not to pick on this lady, but the situation of messy house, disorganization, literally leaving things that could be picked up.
Yeah.
What justification do you have to go through daily to yourself that allows you to not do what you need to do?
Yeah. Well, episode 3 with you and Joey was talking about habits, right? Habits are habitual, right? They can be very bad habits, or they can be good habits, but you have to start creating those habits. And I think you even actually said it in that episode that a lot of time the habits are, there's something we almost don't even realize we're doing.
Yeah.
And we're not making we're just making habits that are continuing to put us in that situation.
Yes.
Without almost even realizing it, until 40 years go by and you're like, oh. Like you said, you were supposed to be married 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
You had like 2 days to go or something. You were like, well, I'm 30 in like 2 days, so I should be married.
My ambition was to be married and have 2 kids by 30. So I had, at 29 and 363 days, I was like, well, I got 2 days to get all this done.
And Joey responded with, gloriously, that there are a lot of websites you could probably find someone real quickly. I thought that was great. Anyway, so actually coming back to, and I know we kind of got down that.
So this would be a perfect spot, because we never even actually said what it was.
Right, what it was we were talking about last week.
Yes.
So what we were triggering was the fact that, because this is like, again, you get so many naysayers, right? The what ifs, the negatives, and I was like, well, all you need, if your fear meter, right, you look at a bar chart or a bar graph, whatever, but your fear meter is at, let's say, 50%. All you need is your courage meter to be at 50.00001%.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
Like, it needs to be that much higher than the fear.
Yes.
And you can do it.
Yeah.
Right. But if your fear is over top of the courage,
right,
you'll never get it done.
Right.
right? And that's the naysayers or the, yeah, I've been thinking about doing this or doing that, and 3 years go by and I'm like, where are you at now? Well, I'm still doing this, or I still want to look into this, or I'm still saving up for this. And it's like, well,
you're still finding fear.
All you did was push yourself down the road 3 years, right? So like, and I mean, I would say the hardest part, getting back to the real estate talk, but the hardest part about getting into it is the very first time getting into it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part. A, for the fear.
Yeah.
But B, monetary, right? Like the traditional way to go buy a investment property or a house is 20-25% down.
Right.
Now, home buyers, you could put like 5% down, right? Pretty great. Pretty not as hard, right? But if you're talking a $300,000 house in today's market, you're still having to come up with 15 grand. Right. That's not that easy to do, especially if you just got out of college and whatever. Right. But, and I have a whole list actually of like ways around that. You don't have to put 20-25% down. There's so many avenues to get into this that people don't even know or think of or realize as an option. But on that same token of how your courage literally just needs to be slightly higher than the fear, I had the other one I thought of too, is that you can jump into something, and don't get me wrong, don't jump into something blind, right? Don't be naive. Don't jump into something blind. But I didn't know really what I was doing when I jumped into real estate. Yeah. I mean, I did my work with like reading books, listening to podcasts, going to meetings and talking to other investors, right? Of who I want to basically be essentially. But my knowledge wasn't, I've never done it hands-on. So my knowledge wasn't there. So let's say that the same thing, the knowledge is at 50% when really it should be at, let's say 100, right? You're a master of it. But it's at 50%. Your passion, tenacity, motivation, whatever word you want to put it, that needs to be at 50.0001%, right? It just needs to be that much higher to be able to say, I believe in myself. I believe in the numbers, because the numbers don't lie, that if this is a good investment, I'm going to do it. And I'll learn how to do it along the way. Right. Like, don't jump in blind, because then you'll probably fall on your face. But jump into it knowing that you're going to learn the ropes. And that was my first thought, was like, I'm just going to do it because I believe in myself. If I believe in myself, I'm going to do it. And I'll figure out how to close on it, or how to raise the capital, or how to manage renters, or how to sign a lease, how to even find a lease, right?
You're never going to get to that point unless you put yourself in the position to problem solve.
Yeah. And you mentioned this, and I wrote it down. Episode 2, you're talking about operating the excavator, that the guy asked you, how much did it cost to get this good at? And you're like, well, it didn't cost me anything. I just did it. And I had the passion basically to learn it and make myself good at it. And it's the same thing. Like, you don't necessarily have to know every step of it. That's the whole point of networking and talking to people, and just do it and you will learn it. Like, I went into it. I never had I don't know what a lease looks like. I didn't. I was like asking my parents for one, and theirs was horribly written and typos everywhere. And but it's stuff like that. Like, I learned from that though. Right. Same, like, I learned not to use theirs. I learned to come up with my own. I took pieces from everybody else's and found out what I wanted in mind. Right. Applications, evictions, you name it. Like, how do you handle all this? I don't really know, but I'll figure it out. Right. That was kind of like the mentality I went into it, because my courage outweighed my fear. And my passion outweighed the knowledge to know that I'll figure that part out.
That, I think that, like, the 51% separation, we'll just for sake of easy numbers, like that 1% or that 0.001%, like, that distance from one to the other can sometimes seem large. Like, or like,
like, you mean if your meter's at like 10% now?
Well,
you got to get it 41% higher.
If you have no fear and you have all courage, it's like that's when you can go into things blindly.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Like, when you're when your courage is a lot closer to your fear looks way bigger than it actually is. You know what I mean? Because like, you still don't, that confidence hasn't been built up yet. And you don't have that confirmation of, hey, I can do this. This does work. I am a good bet on myself. And your fear can honestly, like, I feel like at that point in time, if you're at that, 0.01% in the good direction, you almost have to act against what you might think is right. You know what I mean? Like, you just have to go and not think about it. I'm just going to do it. It kind of, like, there is fear there, but I have to just not pay attention to it and go for it. And that's the uncomfortable part, is you literally feel like you're doing something wrong.
Sure. Yeah.
But you have enough courage to prove yourself wrong.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of fear. I think this will work out. I'm going to take a chance and prove myself wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I'm going to hold myself to that accountability.
Yes.
And I'm going to prove myself right or wrong. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then once you do that, then your courage and your knowledge grows, you know. And I don't even necessarily know if you're, I mean, kind of a moot point, but let's say your fear doesn't necessarily shrink, it just gets smaller and relative to your courage.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because there's always a certain amount of hesitancy because you recognize the risk factors involved.
Yeah.
And the bigger the investment, the more the risks, and there's different risks every time you do something.
For sure.
So I don't think your fear ever goes away. I just think your courage grows.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, every new deal or, you know, new opportunity I'm looking at, I'm like, well, that little, you know, the bad angel on your shoulder, right, is always like whispering, like, well, what if?
Right.
Or this is a new area, right? Like, I like multifamily investing, and, you know, I've been thinking of doing short-term rentals and stuff like that. But you have that little, in today's market, well, interest rates are high, right? Or what if people aren't going to travel as much because short-term rentals aren't going to work then? You know, like, you have that whisper.
Yeah.
But again, if the numbers don't lie,
right,
like, you're good.
Right.
And that's what most people don't realize, is like, if the numbers work out,
right,
and you're putting modest numbers, right? You're not putting like best case scenario numbers, but you're running that and getting modest numbers. And there's many ways to do that. That might be, you know, a whole another conversation of where do you get those numbers, or where do you run that?
Yeah.
You know, or what platform do you use? You know, you name it.
Well, that's why you have friends. For one thing, you have friends, you have people that are doing it. You have, you know, like, you have to kind of search out the right answers.
You do. Yeah.
You know, it's not just going to come to you. You do have to make an effort to find the right answers.
You do. I mean, you need a real estate agent you can trust, that you know, that you like, you trust, that they know the market as well. Not only know the housing market.
Like KJ Sayer with the Benton Group.
Like,
so I have to plug Casey too.
Okay.
So Casey and Casey Kiley and KJ Sayer. So actually, Casey helped me buy a property just down the road here.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Do they have to pay you for that advertisement now?
No. Yeah. I know probably one of them are going to listen to this.
I mean, there are tens of people listening to this, so you are welcome.
Tens of people. So actually, cool thing is, since this is has been coordinated with Blacktop Banner, it basically took this exposure times 100 overnight.
Oh yeah, I bet. Yeah, I saw that announcement. That's pretty sweet.
Like, just on Instagram alone, there's over 50,000 followers on Instagram.
On this channel?
So for Blacktop Banner, what Blacktop Banner has become is it is a brand in the asphalt industry.
Okay, yeah.
It's not a business, it's its own brand, just to promote, push, expose, you know, the asphalt industry, connect everybody contractor wise.
Yeah.
But then it's a media platform so that people not in the contracting space can just, it's an eye inside the industry.
Yeah. And
so Blacktop Banner has become something that is it's blown up over the last couple of years. And it's going somewhere. And Marvin, who started it, a buddy of mine, he's like, hey, would you want to kind of run this race together with me?
Yeah.
And be one of the content creators and put your fly the podcast under the Blacktop Banner flag. And I'm like, dude, why not?
Yeah, that's super cool.
Because there's going to be
good for you, man.
There's going to be people that listen to this that say, like, hey, I see value in that.
Yeah.
You know, I see value in their conversations. I like what you're doing. What can I do to help you make this better and continue this along?
Yeah.
You know, or it sparks somebody else's interest. Like, hey, I want to be on there.
Right.
You know, like, the possibilities are endless. But when I was approached with it, I'm like, I don't see there's not a bad side to this.
Right.
Like, why would I not?
Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, good for you, dude. That's huge with how big it's gotten and how big your asphalt company's gotten in the last few years. I mean, And you're obviously, like, I think you even said this before on some episodes before that.
Yeah.
This isn't for everyone, right? This is going to be for that person that has that go get 'em attitude. And you are definitely on the top of that list as go getters, because I don't know. I mean, I guess I get that question too, is like, how do you do it all? But dude, you're running an asphalt company that you just started, what, 3-4 years ago?
3.5 years ago. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty accurate. 3-4.
Yeah.
And then you start the podcast.
Yeah.
And then you want to do real estate invest. Like,
yeah,
you're just all over the place, which is awesome. Yeah. And that's why too, is like, I might give real estate examples, whatnot, but it's definitely tailorable to other industries. Yeah. Right. That type of little nuggets that someone might get out of this could be used for any industry.
Yes.
And that's why, like, a lot of my references, I would say, because I'm a huge proponent of Rich Dad Poor Dad. Yeah. I know you've read the book because I think I made you. And I read that book and then I reread it after a few years, and I was like, man, you just got even more reading it twice. But that book, for those of you listening that haven't read that, or like want that maybe spark of where to go or how to do things, or
the mindset, it puts money into perspective.
It does. It gives you the mindset.
Yes. Money, and it puts money and time into perspective.
It's amazing. And it's a quick read. It's not like, it's an encyclopedia. It's a really quick read. And I think it's like $8 on Amazon. Like, it's really cheap.
Yeah.
So it's worth $8 investing in yourself. But that book, no joke, changes your lives. Actually, the Bigger Pockets podcast.
Yep.
Right. Probably the biggest real estate podcast there is.
Yep.
Listen to them a lot. And they actually, they ask every one of their guests, they go, all right, excluding Rich Dad Poor Dad, what books do you like? Or what books do you encourage? Because everyone's first answer is Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah.
It's by Robert Kiyosaki, for those of you that don't know. They literally don't even want to hear that anymore. They literally say, besides that, right? Or like excluding this, because everyone says it, what other ones are there? But it's so true. It's
after
wild.
I read it, me and you were talking on the phone one time, and it came out in conversation, and I think I was the one that brought it up. I'm like, I almost don't want to invest in a property with somebody that has not read that book.
100%. Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, just because you're willing doesn't mean that you have the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, we have to,
if we want to be on nice coffee. Yeah, thank you. I know we have the same one.
So
but you don't have one that has your name on it.
No, I do not. But I bank with State Savings.
I know you do. Actually, that's why I started going to State Savings.
Oh, really?
It was your referral. So thank you. Another shout out, State Savings Bank, Traverse City. So sponsored by.
But no, it's like, you get into something, when you're getting into a real estate investment, you have, especially for the first time, you have a certain amount of fear, you have a certain amount of courage, you have a certain amount of knowledge, you have, determination, all of those things. Then when you go into it with a partner, their ratio of all of those things are completely different than yours.
Yeah.
But if your basis foundational knowledge isn't in parallel with each other,
right,
you are entering into a bad relationship.
Yeah.
And so it's like, man, this is the easiest way to get somebody on the same page, to where it's like, all right, you now can't deny the knowledge that you've learned. If you actually read this book, then we can be on the same page.
Yeah.
If you don't agree with it, that's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was excited because I told you to read it, and you were, and I was so excited to like hear your thoughts after you were done with it.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest takeaway for me with that book is understand, and that's what you're saying too, is like, you don't want to work with someone that hasn't read it. I think the biggest understanding with that book, and you'd basically be on the same page at that point, is knowing what an asset is versus a liability. Right? Knowing what to invest in, because a lot of people, they'll buy a new car, and they'll call it an asset. They'll buy a house that they live in and they call it an asset. Well, it's not, right? It's only an asset if it's actually paying you, right? If you're depleting money every month into it, it's not an asset. It's a liability taking money from you.
So back to the household.
Yeah.
That, you approach this lady like,
oh yeah,
her liabilities were 2-liter Coke bottles.
Well, yeah, and or just
because
a TV,
yes,
cable, like the stuff that was gonna not gain her anything. It was only ever gonna depreciate. But also, it wasn't giving her anything but maybe like temporary enjoyment, but it wasn't paying her.
It wasn't paying her.
It wasn't paying her. So like she had to have maybe this certain car, or she had to live in maybe this area, or she had to have this size TV, or she had to have the newest smartphone, right? Yeah. Those are all liabilities, and there's nothing of an asset in there. Yeah. Right. We all know that you buy a car, and as soon as you drive it off the lot, it's worth less. Yeah. Right. That's not an asset. Yeah. Now, a way to make, this is something Rich Dad Poor Dad too, and it's kind of controversial, is that your primary residence, he'll say, is not an asset. Right. And my first thought was like, well, no, there's equity in it. Of course it's an asset. Right. Yeah. Which it's a liability because you're paying every month for it. Right. Like you're paying taxes, you're paying your mortgage, you're paying whatever. Right. But you can turn it into an asset. That's what's cool. And that's what a lot of people miss, is you can use that equity for yourself instead of the bank. You can make your liability, your primary residence, into an asset by using the equity.
Squeeze the asset value out of it.
Yeah. And you used it for something else. Yes. Yeah. And that's what a lot of people don't do. I mean, and specifically right now, right? Well, interest rates are high. I'm not going to refi, or I have to buy a house and I'm going to pay that much more on the mortgage. Well, interest rates hopefully will come down, right? We can always refi them or refi again when they come down. But you're also, who knows how many years that's going to take. Now you're going to be 3-4 years behind someone that said, screw it. If the numbers work, why do I care what the interest rates are? Right. Actually, I had my banker actually looked at me with a weird eye when he goes, well, unfortunately, the interest rate's going to be like 7% or right around 7%. And I was like, honestly, I don't care. Right. So what do you mean? I was like, well, I mean, yeah, last year they were 5, right? Whatever. But I don't care if it's 7%, as long as the numbers work and my tenants are paying that higher percentage and the numbers still work and I'm still cash flowing. Right. Why do I care what the interest? I'm not the one paying it. Right. He goes, what do you mean you're not the one paying it? I'm like, to you, I'm the one paying it. Right. But I have people putting money into my bank account. Right. They're paying. I'm not paying anything out of my own pocket. Right. I don't care.
It's an exchange.
Right. Right. Yeah. I'm using someone else's money.
Transfer of funds. Take it from you. Give it to me.
I'm constantly using someone else's money to buy me stuff.
Yeah.
I love it.
To buy me stuff.
I'm serious. And I wrote that down too. This is a saying I've been saying this now for a few years. And I need to coin it, although it probably could get a little better. But anyway, the gist of it is, and this kind of goes to those naysayers, is, how I look at real estate investing is I have people paying me to give me a free house. Yeah. Right? Yeah. All I had to do was the initial paperwork and have the courage over the fear to do it. Yeah. Once I do that, I'm using everybody else's money, moving it over here, having my tenants, other people, right? My tenants pay me to pay off the mortgage, pay off the taxes, pay off everything with cash flow. Yeah. So they're literally paying me to eventually give me a completely free house that I never paid a dime for. Right. And that's powerful when people look at it like that. Yeah. Because most people don't.
What I have a hard time with is you sometimes feel like you're a lone crusader in all of these things.
Yeah.
Because your example with the banker, you would think that somebody in his position is going to automatically know where you're coming from.
Right.
But they don't.
No, they don't.
Because just because they're in that position doesn't mean that they think the way that you do, doesn't mean that they have the same ambition that you do.
Right.
None of that.
Well, the bank just wants to make sure they get paid.
The bank just wants to make sure.
So when I said that, he almost was concerned that, like, what do you mean you're not going to pay?
This is a concept.
No.
People do this all the time and they're very successful at it. So if you're in the financial world, why does it seem like new news to you?
Specifically in the financial world of investment houses, not just even, he was literally like, that's what he does. It's commercial investment properties. So he should have known what I was talking about, but I think he was almost more on the concern of like, I'm not going to pay you. Like, what do you mean you're not going to pay your loan?
Yeah, but to me, it should be so common knowledge. His response would be, oh yeah, okay, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like, it shouldn't have to trip anybody up of what you're trying to do.
I shouldn't have to explain. Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I know. I agree.
It blows my mind. It does.
It does.
But that's just the way that it is. And so, you kind of have to be your own crusader for your own cause, because you might run into a lot of situations, many situations that nobody's going to believe you.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to understand you.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to be willing to help.
Yep.
So you have to have the knowledge, have the courage, and have the dedication to push this whole thing through.
Yeah.
Because you believe in yourself that much, and every step of the way you go, there is a very good chance that everybody you come in interaction with is going to throw caution into your wind.
Yeah, or you look like you look like a dreamer, right? If you're just always talking about like doing this and doing that.
Yep.
And actually, so that sparked an idea of mine that don't mean to throw my wife under the bus, but my wife said that. She goes,
Brittany, plug your ears.
Yeah. She goes, you know, like you have all these dreams and like ideas, like, don't you worry that like if you're kind of always doing this and doing that and wanting to do this, and like, don't you think that like people are thinking that you're kind of like all over the place and crazy, right? Like
maybe if you cared about what other people thought.
Right. That was part of my response. My second response was, I need you on my page. Right? Without you being on my team or on the same level of thinking as me, you're going to constantly, I can't go spend 50 grand without you saying, wait, what? Now I can literally go spend as much money as I want and she won't bat an eye. She'll just be like, oh, sweet, sounds good. Right? So that took time. B, I said, you will never understand where I'm at until you have to, and we're going right back to this, you have to read Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah.
I go, until you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I almost can't even like go over this with you or explain to you my ideas and my thoughts, because you're literally looking at me as like a far-fetched dreamer.
Yeah.
Right. So I literally made her read Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah.
And she ever since what has been on my page, to where I am constantly looking for new deals and new ideas and way to do it right, and new areas or new opportunities. And she no longer is, well, what if this, or well, what are the numbers, or what if, she knows that if I'm doing it and I'm excited about it, the numbers work, because otherwise I wouldn't even waste her time with it. And she knows that I've proven myself now by doing a few of these deals that I have that trust built. But she's on my level, like she's on my field now. And without that backing and like that support group, it's really tough to do it, because you constantly
group, meaning your wife, which
support, or just who you're with, right? If you're not married, but like who you're with, and you don't want to hang out with people that are going to be dragging you down, for lack of better terms. Right. You want to wrap yourself up with people that have the similar go get 'em passionate attitude, because otherwise you're gonna get drugged down into their negative attitude or their why nots instead of the why can we or why should we. And
that's just plain good marriage advice.
Right.
Like when you said that, I'm like, ooh, like that
you're welcome. Now you can get married.
No kidding.
That's what you've been waiting for.
That's what I've been waiting for, Nate.
We're done.
But it's like, that should take a lot of people, that should catch a lot of people's attention, is that when you said that, like, I have to get my wife on the same page, like that's marriage advice, that's investment advice, and like that
partner advice, right?
Like partner, that's huge.
There are so many people I would never partner with, and I don't mean that to be like a dick or like, but there's people that I know that it wouldn't work. Like I don't trust them to wake up by 8 a.m. Right. Like, or I can't trust them to do something when I say, hey, we need to run these numbers, we need to run this, or we do this for me. I can't trust them to get it done when I ask. Right. And then there's people where it's like, dude, I want to work with you. Like, let's find something and let's do it. Right. And having your wife on that page. I mean, literally,
you're unstoppable.
I've done it a few times now. I've literally went and I'll spend like 45 grand. I'll just go buy a house. She's never seen the house. I've actually bought two. She'd never stepped foot in it. Okay. She'd never stepped foot in this house. And there's a lot of faith that she had to have in me, but also I knew I had to get her there somehow. Right. But no, I bought two houses and she'd never even seen them other than a few pictures. But that wouldn't have worked had I not worked on how to get her there, or like how to be on the same page, right? And have her trust me. I mean, there's a lot of trust involved. Especially when it's like do or die trust, right? You're married to the person. Your budget, your bills. You have it all together, and it needs to work. Right. I mean, it can ruin relationships if the money's the number one reason why relationships get ruined.
Well, you made a very good point, and kind of in passing, and that's actually how this whole thing got started, is you made the confidence over fear comment in passing.
Yeah.
You were just kind of like, you're just kind of like, well, I mean, you know, your confidence just has to be 0.5% more than your fear, right? And I'm like, oh, wait, whoa, hold on. But the point you just made in relation to marriage is it took time.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and so when you said that, you're like, and that also took time. Like that statement of it took time, I'm sure that was a big event.
Yeah.
Or a series of events. Like it took time means that, I mean, who knows, it doesn't really matter, but 6 months, a year and a half, whatever it is, there was time spent in the space of uncertainty.
Yeah.
You know, and somewhat discomfort inside your marriage in order to figure, let's sort through this, figure out what this is so we can get to the backside of it.
Yeah.
And do something about it. We're either, you know, it's either going to be a yay or an A.
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, in a marriage, especially, even though I'm not married, but it's a different type of partnership.
Yeah.
Because you can't walk away from
it. You know, you are legally binded.
Right. I have to see,
especially when you have kids. No,
you know, there's a lot more involved there rather than just, you know, a business partner. You go home separately.
Yeah.
You interact with them for a time.
You talk shit about them at night.
Yeah. You know, you can vent, you know,
yeah.
You can't vent to them about them.
Right.
You know, so I just thought that was, you know, that's a big point that a lot of people can miss.
Yeah.
It's a detail that shouldn't be overlooked, and it's a detail that can easily be missed, and it's a very important one.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, one thing I like about you with all of this is, you know, you've got into it, but you pretty much fixate on something that you want and you go for it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna do it.
And when you do that, you don't try to reinvent the wheel.
No, right.
You know what I mean? Like there's enough challenges in that space. I don't need to try and be a hero and reinvent the wheel because, you know, between Rich Dad, Poor Dad and
Bigger Pockets
and the Burr method and all these things, you have a plan of action.
Yeah.
When you go into something, like the venture has enough variables in itself.
Yeah, I mean, there's enough proven models that, you know, pick one that you like the idea of or that you think would work for you. Because, and I was saying that earlier, I mean, that's a whole nother conversation, but like the traditional way to buy an investment property, particularly, is 20 to 25% down, you know, commercial loan or personal, whatever.
Yeah.
I started going commercial. That way, remember, you're on camera for this. Yeah. And is going commercial because they don't look at your DTI being debt to income ratio, right? And that's huge with someone that's 1099 like yourself and me, right?
Yeah.
Is the DTI can be a huge hindrance.
Yeah.
You've got a couple of vehicles. You've got an excavator that costs a lot of money. You've got 3 houses. It looks like a ton of debt. So DTI doesn't look good because you're making this amount, right? But your debt's up here. But when you go commercial side of it, yeah, you got to put more down, like 20, 25% usually.
Right.
But they're not going to look at your DTI like hardly. I mean, they look at it, but not hardly at all.
So what I just went through with this, and if you're in a business space, this is going to be something that's crucially important for you, because having what I just recently learned, exactly what a balance sheet is for your business.
Yeah.
Your balance sheet, your cash flow, and your P&L statements, profit and loss.
Yeah.
Like you have to have those things up to date, and it becomes really hard. I was on the tipping point of it. It wasn't too hard, but I could see if I let too much more time go by, it would be really hard and hold me up from a lot of big opportunities had I not been keeping track of those things along the way.
Consistently. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you are a business owner, especially one with high overhead, lots of money coming and going, like you have to have those things if you ever want the opportunity to do more.
Yeah.
Because when you approach the bank, they're going to want to see like, all right, just because you did this much business last year doesn't mean anything to us.
Right. No. Yeah.
Like,
are you actually making money?
Are you actually making money? Yes. Are you worth more than your debt?
Right.
That's all a balance sheet is are you worth more than your debt?
Right. Yep. Are you bringing in more than the expenses leaving? Right. And again, that's back to that, like what we don't get taught in high school, even college, right? But high school, we don't get taught how to balance a budget sheet, a profit loss statement. We don't get, we don't have any examples or teachings of like, okay, if you're making this, what can you or should you buy then? Right? Or what are you going to look like in 6 months if you continue to buy this, this, and this, but your income didn't change?
So
right?
It could ruffle a lot of feathers depending on who you say it to, especially teachers.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Because there's somebody that dedicated their livelihood to something that they're passionate about, which is teaching kids, which is very noble.
Yeah.
And definitely a good thing to do. But the school system in general,
yeah,
what does it actually teach you?
Well, the standardized testing, right? It's a lot of it's out of their control because the government has standardized the curriculums.
Yes. So to be successful in the world, where do you get prepared for that?
Exactly. Now,
it's your own ambition, but if nobody gives you the idea that it's even possible, then you can't even spark your own ambition.
Yeah.
Like at least give somebody the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. The tip of the iceberg topic of like, hey, this is how you stay out of debt.
This is how you build a credit.
This is how you
while not going underneath it.
Yes. And the idea for financial I don't even want to call it responsibility, but the idea for financial action, how you treat finances, is that you don't end up backwards.
Yeah. I mean, compound interest. I didn't learn that term until after high school, after college, probably. I don't even know. But like the idea of compound interest, and when you can start that younger, and the difference that it makes the younger you are, even if it's $5 a week, right? Like given the example from earlier, it makes literally a world of difference. I mean, unbelievably different opportunity for someone that started investing, let's say 18, even if it was a Starbucks coffee a week, compared to someone that waited when they were established with their 401, maybe they're 30, right? And then they finally start contributing to something. That 18-year-old can put away half as much money as that 30-year-old and have way more in retirement. Way more.
Yeah.
It's not even fun.
Think about that.
No.
I can speak in reference to 18-year-old guys because I was one.
Yeah.
It's like, you're more interested in what kind of vehicle can you drive?
Yeah. Well, we're just told to go pick a college.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going for, but I'm supposed to go to one.
Well, what are you going to do when you're out of high school? What college are you going to go to?
No idea. I'm just going. I don't know why, but I'm going.
What other questions can we ask an 18-year-old, 17-year-old, 16-year-old that's looking for those? Like, ask a different question.
Yeah. Not where are you going? Why are you going?
Yeah.
Right?
Why are you going? What are you doing?
Yeah.
What are your plans?
So I think the biggest piece of advice,
all they're doing is answering the question. That's it.
It's open-ended.
And it's open-ended. Well,
I mean, sorry, it's not open-ended. It's closed.
Yes.
To where they're not able to think about it.
They're just producing an answer producing a result to answer the question.
Yeah.
There's no actual goal behind
it. There's no knowledge put into it.
Yeah. There's no knowledge put into it. There's no ambition. There's no goal behind it.
Yeah.
And so then you have a society of people that are just kind of acting because they have to have an answer.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately too, I mean, that comes down to parenting, right? Parents aren't necessarily asking the right questions either. Right. They expect the schools to do it, or because they never learned it or never put themselves in that situation, they're doing the same thing that their parents did to them, that the school system did to them, right? It's just like, who's going to break the mold? And I always say, I think the biggest thing you can do out of high school, college, whatever, sure, go get your studies. Knowledge is power, right? You do need knowledge wherever that may come from. It doesn't have to be college, but you need knowledge to do anything, right? Go get your knowledge, invest in yourself, right? But when you're going to go buy a house, like if I were single with no kids, 100,000%, especially now that my wife's on board, like I wish we'd have done this first.
Yeah.
100,000%. The best thing you can do is go house hack. And house hack, to give the general definition, is buy a house that has, let's say it's a duplex. It's 2+ units. You're going to buy it. You're going to live in one. You're only going to put 5% down, by the way, if any, because it's your first time home. It's your residence.
Okay.
So 0 to 5% down, right? Depending on the loan you get and your situation. You're going to have a house that you didn't have to cough up hardly anything for. You're going to live in one unit. And maybe you have 1 or 2 other units in there. You're going to have someone else renting those units from you paying your entire mortgage, all the expenses of that house. Then what do you have in 2 years? You have an asset that you can use. So it's already an asset because someone's paying you. You're not paying for it. It's not bleeding you dry. You have someone paying you to live for free in a house that you own. And then in 2 years, refi or do something to take the equity and do it again. Right. If you're young with no kids, I mean, even if you are young with kids, whatever, and your spouse is on board, again, a big part of this, you can do this literally every 2 years. You refi or get the equity, do it again. Tell the new loan officer or for the new house, hey, that's gonna be my primary residence. If it's your primary residence, you put like 5% down. So you had 2 years to save up some of that net cash flow from your renters. You use that 5% to buy another one, fill that unit you were living in with another renter. Now you're making even more off of that first unit. And you have another one that's going to do the same thing. And now it's a snowball effect. An unbelievable snowball effect. But what do? We all go take out a loan for a house that we can't afford or probably shouldn't have bought. Maybe it's too expensive but we have to pay for it.
Because you want to show to your friends or you want to feel like you're successful in some area. So you put yourself in a bigger bind for the false sense of success.
Or just the fact that like we're told to buy a house. But we're not told smart ways to buy a house. Because you can buy a house that you can live in for free. And people don't realize that. They're like, what do you mean? Nothing's free. Well, it's free when someone else is paying for it. You had to do the legwork of getting a loan, sure. But
because most people operate out of fear. Go buy a house, go get a good job so that you're secure for the rest of your life. And you can basically maintain this level of mediocrity.
Well, how much harder is it now if you bought a normal house that you just, you live in? How much harder is it now to buy the first investment house? That could have been your first step had anyone know about this. I wish I'd have done that. Your first house is easy to buy when it's a first-time home buyer. And I can buy it and let someone else pay for it? If it's a duplex plus? And then I can do that every couple of years if I don't mind moving. And then if I get sick of moving every couple of years, then buy a house, but everybody else paid for it. Like, I wish that high schoolers were taught that. Because they're missing so much opportunity.
So what I look at is, okay, two different things. For one, the statement I just made with maintaining a level of mediocrity, that's going to ruffle a lot of feathers to the wrong crowd.
For sure.
I'm not saying that
there's nothing wrong with it. If that's you, I just spilled water all over my crotch.
there's if that's how you want to be and that's the choice you make and that's where you feel comfortable, fine.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But this whole podcast
is not for them.
Most people that I come in contact with is based around I want to do more.
Right. I don't want to be mediocre.
Right. I want to do more. And
average sucks.
Mediocre is if that's what somebody wants and they're content with that, fine, because it's going to be different strokes for different folks. I just always want more. How much can I do? How far can I go? You just always look for the next step. Like I don't get the satisfactory feeling unless I feel like I'm maximizing my potential. You know what I mean? Which also comes with, in order to get there, there's a giant area of uncomfortability that you have to live in and 100%. Almost stay in, because when you move out of that space, you don't move forward. You just kind of maintain, and so I don't want to say that as a negative, as a way to kind of like devalue anybody and any one person by any means. I'm just more so speaking to the people that are in that high performer category that, that I want to do more. I want to do more. I want to do more. It's like, all right, if I don't say something that's going to hit you in the face, that's going to make you think differently and realize that what you're doing is going, what you're acting on is going to produce what you want or don't want.
Right.
So that's why I say that. And my other thought is, when you say something like, well, why isn't this taught? I don't know.
Right.
Where my mind goes is, what are you going to do about it?
Right. So that's a good question. So my thought, and this is actually one of the biggest whys that I have, which I wanted to get into as well, is I want to be able to teach my kids this, right? Of the different mentality. And it's not to say that your mentality is wrong and mine's right, but I'm very opinionated if you haven't caught that by now, and probably very loud. I don't know if you'd turn down the mic or something, but is I want to be able to teach my kid that, let's say he goes to college or whatever, but if we buy a house, maybe I buy it for him, maybe he buys it, but I want him to learn, like if I buy him a house, it's going to be a duplex plus. I want him to learn how to manage someone else. Right. And then someone else pays for it. He gets free housing, whether he buys it or I buy it, that he can learn how to build an asset up that someone else pays for. He got through so much easier. And then college is over. Maybe he wants to sell it. Great. Right. But he also learned so much in that time frame of how to manage other people, how to do a lease, how to get a loan, how to handle when your tenant texts you like they did this morning that their furnace isn't working, right? Stuff like that's going to come up, and you're going to have negative situations. I mean, you're going to lose some willpower, right? It's impossible to keep 100% willpower and courage every single day, right? And I think that's kind of why the 7-day hustle thing is an awesome thing, because it's not the same for everybody, right? Like some people might completely just take off the weekends, right? And then they restart. Like you even said that it's like kind of, we have that cyclical clock every week that Monday we restart, which is fine. But some people are go. Right. I mean, look at the Jeff Bezos of the world. Right. You have some people that are like, oh, he's a billionaire, screw him. Well, that billionaire didn't get there just on the coattails. I mean, he worked his butt off to get there. You name anyone. Look at Michael Phelps. Take him or leave him for the person. You know, I mean, there's no way that he was 100% motivated and excited to wake up at 3 a.m. to jump in the pool at 5:30. You can't tell me he was 100% every day, can't wait.
Yes.
You know he was sick of it. You know he had to have gotten sick of it. Right? He's like, I got to jump in the pool. I got to do this. He has his routine though. Right? And that's why he is the champion that he is. He wore more gold on his neck than anyone we know. Right? He broke records that we'll never see in our lifetime get broke. Right? But he did that because of his determination, his courage, and his willpower being higher than the fear meter. Right. And he kept it long enough and kept the motivation from people around him or the people he was listening to or whatever to wake up and do that no matter what.
Well, like to give an example to that, like I just kind of experienced that yesterday. Is I had a list of things I needed to get done. I had them wrote up there. 2 of them were still up there. I had 5 things I needed to get done. There was 5 things or 3 things business wise that I needed to accomplish today. I needed to go to the gym, and we had dinner last night for the crew at the end of the season. I was like, these 5 things I have to get done today. This is what I have. Timeline didn't exactly work with everything ideally how I wanted it to. Normally I would go to the gym either in the morning or the afternoon, and dinner was at 6 o'clock. One of the guys couldn't make it, so we moved it to 7 o'clock. But that was like this is the thing that everything else works around, was dinner. You know what I mean? So before or after, this was a hard stop in the middle of the day. The gym didn't happen before that. It's like, well, could go after dinner, but then like I knew I was going to be full, I knew it was going to be late. I'm like, I could, and I just kind of left the thought there.
Let it stew.
I'm like, and then the closer it got, I'm like, I'll just go to the gym afterwards, because it's easy to say what you're going to do. You know what I mean? I'll just go afterwards, knowing that I was gonna have to like confront myself in that moment. We got done, and it was like 10 minutes before we were leaving. I just basically wrote it off. I'm like, I'm not gonna go. Like, I'm tired, I'm stuffed, and then like, fighting a food coma. Didn't get much sleep the night before, and I found myself making excuses, and I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna like leave this off the table for today, and I'm gonna accept that I'm not gonna accomplish everything I wanted to today, and willingly just let myself down for that aspect. Well, I was on my way home, and this is kind of like an all-inclusive thing, because I got 2 memberships, one here in Cocasco and the other one in Traverse. So if I was on that side of town, I had no excuse. You know what I mean?
I saw your post on that.
And so they're open 24 hours every once. That's like 3 days out of the week. And so I had to drive by there on my way home. And I got like this little teeny spark of ambition. And I'm like, I'm just going to go do it. And so I did. I swung in there and I still went to the gym after dinner. It was like, what, 9:30, 10 o'clock when I showed up there.
Okay.
And it's just like, it's not.
And what time do you get up?
What time do I get up? Ideally, I would get up about on average 5 o'clock in the morning.
So you did it knowing full well that you were probably going to lose some sleep.
I was going to lose some sleep. Dude, it is like the hardest thing for me, and a lot of people will watch me on social media and from a distance be like, oh, you're so dedicated or you're so disciplined. And it's like, that discipline has a fudge factor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't always wake up at I don't always wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't always get X amount of sleep at night. I don't always, whether it's the proper amount of sleep or a little bit amount of sleep. I don't always do these things, but in the shift of what's the word? What's a good word? Just in that fluctuation of everything, somehow it all gets worked on.
Yeah.
It all gets accomplished.
Well, I think that's a really good parlay into kind of what I wanted to bring up actually too was, Michael Phelps a lot of times probably didn't want to wake up and go to the pool, but he did, right? Or you wanted to get to the gym and you made yourself go, right? I think it gets talked about a lot, but I don't think it gets dove into enough is having a why. I mean, we hear that all the time is you have to have a why, but I don't know that it's explained enough that people are like, yeah, I know I'm supposed to have a why, but maybe they don't really understand why they need a why, but also like how important that can be. So, because I did this a lot when I was in management with my day job, was helping people come up with whys. And it's important for the fact that if you don't have a why to make yourself get up and go by X amount of time in the morning, make yourself get to the gym, if your why isn't strong enough, you'll flounder on it and you'll cheat it, right? Your why has to be strong enough. So I always did the kind of the mental work of what is your why, right? Most answers I got was, well, it's to provide for my family and, not have to worry about bills, something along those lines. And I'm like, well, isn't that just life? We have to pay the bills, feed our children. Obligations. Yeah, that's not a why, right? We all have to feed our children.
That's a because.
Or we'll end up in in a cell. We have to pay the mortgage or we're gonna lose the house. Those aren't whys. That's just life. Right. So give me more specific. That could be a foundation, right? But build on that. Like take a day, take a week, think about something that's so specific enough to make you actually want and care enough to do it day by day. And that's that 7-day hustle, right? Is if that why isn't strong enough, you're going to wake up on Saturday and not go to the gym because, well, it's the weekend, holidays are coming up. Like you're going to have excuses. But if the why is strong enough, you won't let yourself even get there. Right. Because the vision and the future is so strong and powerful to you. So like to dive deeper, I guess, into that, get specific, like, okay, I want a vacation home by the time I'm 50, whatever, right? Okay, get more specific though. Where is the vacation home? How nice is it? Right? 50 what? 59?
Right.
Or 50 on the dot?
Right.
Right? Like get specific, make it something that, and everybody's why is going to be different. I already know yours is different than mine, and that's fine, but it's whatever gets us to do it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so I'll put you on the spot here.
No, I'm good.
What is your why, or what are your whys?
What is mine? Truthfully, it's hard to figure out exactly what my why is because I'm not married with no kids. And I feel like people with, and maybe that's an excuse that is an easy answer to that question is, well, my family and my kids, I want to create a legacy and things like that. My why is I just want to see what I'm capable of. And I know that if I'm capable of great things, it's not going to happen overnight. You know what I mean? My why, there's a lot of responsibility and the because that have been built up, with having obligations to financed equipment and employees and things like that. So there's a lot of, you can say that those are your why, like you just said, but really those have become your responsibilities.
Right.
Your why, which is outside of your responsibilities.
Build on that as the foundation, right?
Right.
But build into something specific that makes you excited.
Right.
And if it doesn't get you excited, it's okay to change and update your whys. Right. Because hopefully, if our whys are strong enough, maybe we attained our why in 3 years.
Yeah.
Then we re-upped it.
Truthfully, for me, because I can.
Yeah.
Like, why do you get up and go to the gym? And so
that's what I was gonna say. Let's get a little more specific.
Yeah.
So why do you make yourself go to the gym? Like, what is the reason?
So the reason, we'll pick on last night, because I was there and I was thinking, because my mind kind of goes, and I feel like that's become, somewhat of a meditative state, as your mind works in ways it doesn't normally.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, it was definitely an action that wasn't desired, but it was required. Okay. Why? Because it didn't matter if the workout sucked or the time sucked or was enjoyable. The point is I can't lose my consistency in this area.
Yeah.
So whether it was good or whether it wasn't, I can't get to the end of the week and realize that I have 2 days to make up 3 days worth of workouts. That doesn't, excuse me, that doesn't work. So it was, I have to go. I have to keep the consistency, because it wasn't about the workout. It was about keeping myself in training, that the consistency is important, and that will transfer into other things.
Yeah.
I don't want to let myself down. I know the person that I have to become in order to achieve the things that I want to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And for whatever reason, I want to be able, you find reward in doing great things, and when you do that, you have to fight your ego a little bit, because you can't even really think about, well, I did this. It's just that it's there. It had happened.
Yeah.
It's now your responsibility. But honestly, like, my why is something that I struggle with.
Well, there we go. We found something to work on.
Yeah, because I don't have any one big specific thing.
Well, so you actually mentioned a why, though, in season 1, by the way, where you said you don't want it to be off the table. This was with Matt Solom. You didn't want it to be off the table that one day you could possibly buy someone a house.
Yes.
Is that you want that capability?
Yes.
To be something that you can easily do for someone.
I want to be able to.
And I think that's part of your why.
Yeah.
Right. That bigger picture of like, who are you?
I want to be able to give in a way that people can't pay me back.
See, I think that's part of your why. Or if not, I think that is your why.
Yeah.
Right. That's why you're doing so many different things at once, and you want to get to this place to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it.
There is, I think that's.
Cough drop?
No,
I actually think I have one.
Do you have one?
Yeah, I do. Okay. Bam.
I think that's a reward for me, is to be able to give back.
Mm-hmm.
That's a reward, to have the capability to do things for people. That's the reward for me. I think I don't want to get to the end of my life and constantly be swimming in the pool of, I wish I would have, versus I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
If I know that I'm capable of something, and if I know that something's a possibility, why would I not go for that?
Yeah.
Why would I not do something like that? Why would I willingly sit here and know that I'm not reaching my full potential and I could have done something more?
Yeah.
But I think part of it is I've started to say this over the last couple of years, is like, that's just how I'm made. Like, I can't change my stripes. This is just how I am.
Yeah.
Why did I feel like it was fun to mow the lawn at 10 years old and then go charge people to mow their lawn at 10, 11, 12 years old? I don't know. I just,
Yeah.
And I think it's for one, it's being, not necessarily being a people pleaser, but it's probably part of a love language of mine that I'm not really willing to admit, is acts of service.
Yeah. Giving an acts of service.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's the hardest one for me to receive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I want to do for others, but I don't like to receive that. if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I think that might just, I don't know if that's just a guy thing too, though. I feel like we don't want to we don't want to be given stuff, but we would love to help, and maybe like as that provider mentality.
Yeah.
Without sounding like what do they say when you're too mansplaining or man talk, but anyway, I don't mean to sound like that, but like I feel like we're just inherently, we want to be providers, and that's part of it, but like you have bigger dreams than that, to where I agree. I think like it's Christmas time, right?
Yeah.
Love to give, and I find it super exciting to like get something for someone. I get excited for their excitement, and I get excited that like I feel good about it, right? Like maybe you went a little above and beyond,
right?
And that feeling is huge. And so when I was listening to that episode, you were saying that like I don't want it to be out of the realm of possibility that I just literally buy someone a house and say here, and that's it. Like it's done. You don't owe me. Here you go. Right? Like maybe a family in need or a relative, whatever your thought was with that. But I love that idea. And I think that's that overwhelmingly bigger picture of what does that mean as far as the why? Like when will I get there? Maybe there's a goal or a time frame too that you can get more specific on your why of when will that be?
I do know about myself that I have never liked to hear the word no, or I can't do something.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the drive.
You and I and my 4-year-old have that in common. We're very strong-willed.
And I don't ever want to reach a cap or a limit. And that was my biggest problem with working for anybody else, is that I knew there was a limit, and my limit and my cap was based on their ambition.
Yeah.
How far are you willing to let me roam? Well, if I'm my own limit, then there is none.
Yeah.
So why not?
Right.
I am going to have to figure out, and I was just talking about this with somebody the other day, is that, it's talked about a work-life balance, which there isn't really. I think that's become overplayed and misunderstood, because it's not a raise one to sacrifice.
No, it shouldn't be a one or the other.
And then you kind of have this pendulum to where because it's assumed there's an imbalance.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you have a perfect balance, that means that one has to sacrifice for the other one to gain, and vice versa.
Yeah.
It's figure out how to make it all work as one.
Yeah. Yep.
That gives you a lot more freedom.
Yeah.
As other personal elements come into my life, that would be in the form of a relationship or kids or something like that, when that shows up one day, there's going to have to be an adjustment made.
Yeah.
There is. And I think that I think that I get sucked into, it's almost like a drug. You see the reward for your hard work.
Yeah.
And when you start to slack on that, you realize, like stuff's starting to suffer. Like people are starting to complain, or we're not running as smoothly as we could, or my habits are garbage, my mental health is garbage. And you realize what potential you have, and when anything less than that shows up, you realize that you have to work harder or get back to where you were before.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I've been working on the last couple of years, basically running 2 companies with a family and kids. And like, is that work-life balance? You're right, it doesn't mean one or the other. Because, and we've all, I guess the thought I have, I find it so sad because I hate it, but I don't ever want that to be me or my kids, is that we can all think of an episode or a movie or you name it, where the kids say, well, dad was always gone or mom was always gone because they were working.
Yeah.
And we never saw them. We never had them in our childhood.
Yeah.
That's what I don't ever want to have to hear, but I want to provide in that same way that they're taken care of.
Yeah.
Without me actually being out of the picture.
Well, let's just call it out for what it is, because if you ask that dad, we'll say in this case, what is your why? He says, well, my kids, I want to give them something.
Yep.
No.
Yeah.
You're on your own ambition, and you're using your kids as justification to ignore them.
Yeah. You're thinking that you working is helping them. They need you.
Yeah. Let's just be real.
Yep.
You are doing what you're doing because this is something that you want. There's nothing wrong with that. Let's just be honest about the situation.
You are providing for them, probably.
Yes, you are honest, or yes, you are providing, but why is it bad to say, because this is what I want? Because I want to do these things.
Yeah.
I also want a good relationship with my kid. I also want to provide for them. I also want to give them things. But if that's not what your kids want, then it automatically removes the whole purpose for your being.
I was just gonna say that is the purpose of your being a father.
Yeah.
Right. Is that your kids want you, they want to look up to you, they want to learn from you. And the last thing that I want them to say is that they didn't get that chance.
Yeah. So you don't have to justify your desires for providing for your kids or your family or whatever. You can have both.
Yeah.
Because I want this for me, because I still have purpose and ambition and desires for me in my life.
Yeah.
I also want to provide for my kids.
Yeah.
But I make it an and statement.
Yeah. I think actually
because I want this and I want that. And so once you actually open that up and say, well, this is all of what I want. All right, well, let's figure out how to make that happen.
Right. I think that's one of the positives to what COVID's actually done for us, is it's opened up the door to technology and people and companies realizing, well, wait, you can just work from home and do the same thing. We don't need to lease this space. We don't need to travel to Chicago for this. Right. And it's allowed for a lot more of that family time that we all got a lot more of in 2020. And now it's kind of getting back to that grind, but there's a lot more people now at home with kids and working and having a better balance of that someone's not suffering for them to take care of someone else.
Yeah.
Right. Or maybe it's themselves that they're taking care of while someone else is suffering in that aspect of it.
That could go on a big rabbit hole because
absolutely
I feel
all of this
and I'm gonna just peek in the door, but I don't want to go down there.
Yeah.
Is that because I said something along those lines at a conference I went to a week and a half ago now. Is they were pointing out, what did you they asked the question, what did you guys as contractors learn, or what things did you find out how to do differently when COVID happened? Or basically it was like, what new thing did you find out? What magic did you bring up? And I pointed out, it's like, I don't think we necessarily learned anything. Is that what happened is we didn't learn new ways to deal with things, is more so than our inefficiencies were exposed.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it.
Because the solution was right there very soon after, and it came in the form of Zoom, and it came in the form of just many different, either Zoom or email, and a lot of it was, how do you communicate?
Yeah.
Our communication was inefficient, so we have to find out different ways to communicate more efficiently.
Time management.
Here's the solution to that. So it's not like we then created something that wasn't there before, but our inefficiencies were exposed.
For sure.
So we had to force ourselves to implement something that was already there. The reason that we weren't already implementing that is because we're too old school and don't like change, as a whole. So then we're fighting the innovation.
Yeah.
Then once we use it, we're like, oh, okay, I guess this works a lot better. But I think the other aspect too is
we need a 2-part series to this episode.
I know. Is that if you're here in person, I can hold you more accountable than if you're at home.
Yes.
Whose fault is that? Mine or yours? It's mine.
I mean, my willpower though.
But
right.
Let's say in this case, you're working for me. It's my fault if I don't set the standard and hold you accountable to what I need you to do.
Yeah.
Because I'm not very good at doing that, I feel like I need you here in person. Not saying that's going to be applicable for everybody, but I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah.
Well, if you're not here, I don't have as much control over you.
Right.
Well, why would you need a lot of control over me? Well, just because. Well, why don't you give me boundaries to operate within and hold me accountable to those boundaries? Ooh.
Yes.
Yeah. But I do think the other side to that is, I'm a big supporter of environment. Like the reason that this office looks a lot different than the rest of my house is because when I'm in here, it gives you a different feel.
It definitely feels like an office.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like a construction office.
Yeah.
Maybe not my office, but a construction office.
it is hard to work in an environment that doesn't support what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other half of it, is that everybody has inefficiencies, and ultimately that's what we battle every single day.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? So my inefficiency to hold you accountable, your inefficiency to be to have the determination and dedication to be focused when you're at home in an environment that doesn't exactly support what you want to do.
Yeah.
So it's all a big thing. And
wrapping that up, that's why that why needs to be strong enough to outweigh the insufficiencies that we all have.
Yes. It seems like there's a common theme that's coming through. And especially for you, like I'm noticing that you're very good at like, well, it doesn't have to be a problem as long as this is bigger than that.
Yeah.
As long as your answer is bigger than your problem.
Right. Like there's a, there's a way around it, or there's an option for X, Y, and Z. Like we have an issue. How do we solve it? How do we get around it? How do we overcome it?
Right.
I feel like there's always an option, whether or not we're able to brainstorm that enough. Mm-hmm. And that's part of that surroundings of who you're talking to and who you're with, and the knowledge that you're gaining from every situation. Mm-hmm. Like if you're doing something and not learning something from it, what was the point?
Right.
That was part of like getting into real estate, was like, I want to do it just to prove to myself that I can.
Right.
And then I'll find out if it works, or if I like it, or if I can do it. Right. And if I can't, then I at least figured it out and learned that I can or can't, right? Or I'll learn from it and stumble along the way, but eventually I'll be running.
Mm-hmm. As I'm thinking about this, like maybe you tell me if it's a good reason for a why, but I've always wanted the option to choose. Success to me is the ability to choose. I've achieved something if I never actually have it, but I had the opportunity to say no. Does that make sense?
Kind of. To break that one down.
So when I originally went to school, for automotive stuff, my end game with that is I wanted to move to California and build sandrails.
Okay.
How do I get from here to there? Well, I got to go through this whole path of school and experience, and then work and learn and meet people. And so eventually you get closer and closer and closer to it. Because I never actually hit that point, and did the thing, I don't look at that as I didn't succeed at something or I didn't accomplish something, because the opportunity was offered to me and I chose to say no.
Yeah.
I was in this house talking to somebody on the phone. It was a one-off gig out in California. Timeline didn't work out for me. I was going to go be a support technician for the Baja 1000. And I said, wow, that would be really sweet because I wanted to do this and this and this. Eventually, and they said on the phone, they offered me like 5 different job offers. We can make that happen for you. And I thought, I actually accomplished everything I set out to do because I have the option to say no.
Do you not have that option now?
I'm sure I could dig it up again. I know,
like with your current business though, is my thought.
Oh,
I feel like you have that option already, to where you've already maybe accomplished that why.
Maybe
because you're not working for anybody else.
No, I'm not working for anybody else, but there's a different level of, right now I can't approach the bank and say, hey, I want to buy a $5 million property, and they just say, okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're the ones saying no at that point in time.
Yeah. Okay. I got it.
I'm saying please, they're saying no.
I got it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I want the ability to choose. I want the ability to say yes or no that is solely dependent on me.
Yeah, that's pretty big. And I guess, that's huge. I would say like too is almost get even more specific with it though.
Yes.
As far as, right, like it's the number 5 million, right?
Yeah.
Come up with a little more specific, A, time frame.
Yeah.
But then B, maybe it's an amount or some kind of number of this is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I think that would help give you that vision of the why.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be one thing, right? Like a why can have an S at the end of it, right? Why is there can be many different reasons for why you wake up or why you go to the gym or why you run 3 companies, right? Like there can be many different reasons.
Right.
And I think if they're specific, it gets that much stronger and that much more motivating. That gets that willpower up there and stronger.
I've found that if I set large goals, because it's like the universe, okay, there's no end.
Right.
You look at Bezos and Musk and things like that, they're just the biggest person. Like they're just the ones that have done the most
today.
Who's the like next? we can always up the numbers. You know, we do. The numbers can be bigger.
They've been constantly.
So there's really no end to your potential. And I found that if I set an end game, that puts a cap on myself. I need to set short-term goals that will propel me in that direction. You know, and as I get to the
more like minimum.
Yes.
Right. Yes, like I want to hit this plus. Not I want to just hit this.
Because if I don't have direction on what my next move is, then you're just kind of walking around aimlessly.
Right.
So short and midterm goals that propel me in the direction I want to go. And as you get to those short and midterms, you end up moving the target out and you move it out and you move it out. And those, they get bigger and they morph. But if I set an end game, then that's it. What if I don't have a limit to it? It's just,
that's why
I go in this direction.
Well, that's what I was saying too, is like the whys should evolve and should change.
Yes.
Because if it was strong enough that it motivated you for the last 3 years to do it, maybe you accomplished it when your goal was 5 years, you accomplished it at year 3. You should probably adjust the whys. Right. Adjust the goals, adjust the minimums. Right. And they should be constantly evolving. The sky is the limit with that. That's what's wild. I mean, it really is. If you think of it like that, Jeff Bezos is the most, wealthy dude right now, or Elon, whoever, right? They're the wealthiest right now. But the 1950s, $3,000 was a lot of money. Right. Right now, it's like,
so it's all relative.
Right.
What do you think that we've actually? So, just side note. I think that when I see you, it's like, all right, this dude's got the framework to do some really great things because you start early. You don't really waste much time. You don't try and reinvent the wheel, and you do what works. You know what I mean? Which means that you get what you want. Most people, which honestly, that's a testament to like that there's not really an ego involved.
I mean, I hope I don't get portrayed as like egotistical. No. I hope it's more of a pride or like a
sense of accomplishment.
Or like even just a sense of excitement, right? Like
it's excitement. You don't have that at all. And I say that because most people in an entrepreneurial space or just high performance, whatever it is, they want to have, and I'm speaking for myself and some of this too. They want to have the reward of doing it themselves.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah.
And so what will happen is they actually hold what they want further out from themselves because they're struggling with their own ego. Well, I want to do it. This is how it works for me, or this is how I want to do it, or I'm going to do it this. Well, fine. That's what you want to do.
Right.
But it's really not that hard to just do what other people have done. Like, that's stupid. If somebody else has done it and it works,
and you can Google how,
why would you not do the same thing? So then you have to ask yourself, what do you actually want? Do you want the thing that you say that you want, which is your end result and your reward, or do you want to be right? Because if you're fighting those two things, you're going to be wrong, and it's going to prolong what you actually want.
That's huge.
And the only thing that gets in the way of that is ego.
And
so that's why I applaud you so much. And I see that it's like, all right, this dude's going to do great things because you started early. You don't try and reinvent the wheel, and you go for what works. Like, hey, what's the shortest path between me and what I want? Let's do it.
and almost to like that, my wife would say, I love my wife. I don't mean to pick on her. is I get excited about something and I get so excited.
Yeah.
But like you said, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
yep.
I'm not just going to talk about it. I'm actually going to do it.
Right.
And you might be like, wow, he's like super excited about this. And they super excited about this. Like, but I'm going to go full ass into those.
Yes.
I'm not going to half donkey it.
Yes.
Right? I'm going to go full.
Yeah.
And I do actually, it's funny because I feel like it's kind of iterating. The motto I wrote down is like, kind of, what are my mottos? Mm-hmm. The one that I've been living by now for a while is by Vince Lombardi, which no, I'm not a Packers fan. Okay. I've got the Lions hat on actually. However, Vince Lombardi has this really famous quote, and it's been on my desk now for 7-8 years, whatever it's been. Mm-hmm. And I have it right there in front of me. So I see it every day when I'm at my office. Is mm-hmm. The difference between a successful person and others is not a lack of strength and not a lack of knowledge, mm-hmm. but rather it's a lack of will. Mm. That's the only difference between a successful person and others.
Yeah.
And I think that it simplifies everything down to you can do it if you have the courage, mm-hmm. right? The willpower to mm-hmm. do it. You just got to do it. Like, just go do it. Don't tell me you're going to do it. Do it.
You're choosing to leave it alone, or you're choosing to leave it on the table at that point.
Yeah. Like it literally boils down to that simple. Like, I mean, we can overcomplicate things for days, but it really just boils down to like, do you have the willpower that will get you there? Because you don't need that crazy amount of knowledge. You'll learn, you'll gain the knowledge by simply doing it, but it's going to hold you back if you don't. Mm-hmm. If the fear is higher than the will or the courage, you're not going to get there. So you should even have the willpower and the trust in yourself and the trust in the numbers, or however you want to put it, mm-hmm. and then just go.
Yeah.
Right. Don't go blind. Don't go stupid. Yeah. Right. Don't go blind.
Yeah.
Because then you're going in literally like the fool.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But go in with some form or some purpose. The other motto I wrote down, actually I have this tattooed on my chest, is Philippians 4:13. Is that on your board somewhere?
That's Jeremiah 29:11.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good one too. Well, Philippians 4:13. For those of you heathens that don't know it, is I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. And that I think I was 18 when I got that tattooed on my chest. Mm-hmm. And that's always been my thought, is that who's going to hold me back?
Yeah.
Right. Like
you have no limit.
I have no limit. Why would I be told, like you said, I hate to be told no.
Yeah.
Why would I be told no? Because other people have done it. Why can't I do it? Yeah. If that person did it, I can surely do it.
Yeah.
Right. It's not a lack of knowledge or strength. It's a lack of will if you don't.
Right.
So if your willpower matches the person that's already doing it, why can't you do it?
Right.
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 And I truly believe that, is that like, if I get my mind set on something, I'm gonna do it. Mm-hmm. You know, and maybe I'll trip and stumble, but again, that's part of that gaining the knowledge. Right. You don't gain knowledge unless you try something, or unless you do trip and stumble.
Right.
Life shouldn't be that easy, because then what did we learn from it?
Right.
Like, we're supposed to have struggles.
Right.
Right. And some of those struggles are harder to deal with than others, but that's what makes you you. Mm-hmm. Is how did you overcome that, and what it made you into the person you are now. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You've been in the insurance and investment banking space, and you've like, how I see it is it's still there, but you can honestly call yourself a real estate investor at this point in time.
I'd like to, yeah. I mean, I obviously I want to have more.
Yes, you want to have more, but you've done it, you're doing it, and you're continuing to do it. And that crusade is going to outweigh everything else.
Yeah.
That's the momentum that's being created.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yes. So Nate Duell is going to turn into, you know, if somebody were to talk about, oh, he's a real estate investor.
I mean, yeah, that's what I want.
But you're there.
The phrase to be.
But you're there right now, because you're actively working in that space.
Yeah, I'm actively working.
It doesn't have to be a large thing. You've got more than I do, so you're investing more than I am.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, call your own the title that you want. Are you doing it?
Right. Yeah.
Is it to the capacity that you want? No.
Right.
But that's you. You know what I mean? Like still own the space that you're in.
Yeah.
It doesn't have, you don't have to, and I feel like maybe if you're not willing to own that title, it's because there might be some comparative to somebody, well, I don't have as many as potentials of others that I've seen, so I can't really call myself that yet.
Sure.
But you're doing that already now.
Or I think maybe even too, like, is until it fully replaces the day job, then it's not the job, right? Or like the career.
Yeah.
So there's some of that, I think, too. And yeah, I'm very bad about that, comparing myself to others. I mean, part of that is what motivates me. But when my siblings have more units than I do, we've talked about this before. You're like, yeah, but you do you, and I'm like, yeah, I know, but
Zach, I'm coming for
yeah, he's a year and a half younger. He's a year and a half younger than me. He started sooner. He had that willpower before me.
Yeah.
And that, like, just jump in head first type mentality. That's why he's a couple years ahead of me.
Yeah.
Now, right? As he started a couple years ahead. I mean, granted, I had kids sooner, I had a wife sooner, all that stuff, but not to create excuses. I mean, I like the comparison and the fact that as long as it's not like a negative thing or like a jealousy type envy,
yeah,
and it's more of a motivational encouragement, then I think it's on the healthy side of it.
Yeah.
To where it can get very unhealthy if it's more of a jealousy, envious type.
Well, you're operating in somebody's shadow at that point in time, and you're constantly trying to catch up to where they're at. But if you use it as motivation, and say, all right, like, he did this, I can do this, it gives me motivation to do it.
Yeah.
If you're only ever looking to reach where somebody else is at, they're always going to be ahead of you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, but if you see that, hey, I can do that too.
If he's looking back at me, it slows him down.
It's more a matter of, you might find something that will propel you eons ahead.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if your main focus is trying to keep up with somebody else, then you'll always be behind them.
Yeah. No, it's true.
And I don't see you doing that. I'm more so just, saying that just for the sake of saying it. But what do you think that our conversation has been mostly on? Because I need a title for this.
I was thinking we've been all over.
Yeah.
I
mean, you've given marriage advice. We've talked about school system.
Seriously. I mean, I think
a lot of real estate investment.
We've done a lot. I mean, I think the main thing we've hit on and kind of have kept going back to is that will/courage, the will over fear, or the courage over fear. I think that's been the biggest, crown to the whole thing, and kind of, I think everything else is underneath it, as far as like it all related back to that. That courage over fear, or 0.5% more courage than fear, the willpower, whatever you want to say. And I mean, it's, again, maintaining it, but also just finding it. Some people haven't found what they're super passionate about. And I mean, you talk to people, like you said, I do the insurance and retirement planning stuff, and they'll even tell you my passion is in real estate investing.
Oh yeah.
And it's not a bad thing that, like, I'm maybe less focused on the day job and I'm thinking about this, but I juggle it very well. I get asked a lot is, man, I don't know how you do it with the kids, the family. You go hunting and fishing as much as you can. I have chickens at home, a garden in the summer, and 2 companies on top of that. And it is a juggle, but that balance, we talked about it briefly enough, but that's a whole other discussion, but that work-life balance.
Yeah.
And it does take a certain someone to be able to handle it. And I don't mean to pat myself on the back for that, but I do feel like I finally found how to do that.
Yeah.
Without making my kids or my wife or even my work suffer. Like, no one needs to suffer.
Yeah.
If you do it right. We all have the same amount of time in the day.
Yeah.
Right. How are we spending it though?
Yeah.
And
I think, to your point that you made earlier, is that you have a great support system in your marriage.
Yeah. And it takes time. It's not something you can just do or find, right?
Yeah.
Like working with you and, like, just calling you and talking for 45 minutes, just that support system. You actually gave me the encouragement last week when you're like, well, have you ran like a new net worth calculator in the last couple of years since getting into real estate? And I was like, well, no, I haven't. And then that right there sparked my encouragement of, like, without even running the numbers, being like, in the last couple of years, I've definitely bumped that up. Right? Like, all right. I mean, you kind of like it was that easy of a little conversation. But if you don't have those conversations or those people to talk to and that network around you, you aren't, it's hard to pull yourself out of that alone.
Yes.
Right. You do it takes a team.
Yeah.
It's not easy to do this stuff without a team.
Have you heard the phrase, your network is your net worth?
I have not. Your network is your net worth.
The network of your network, the people that you keep around you, is your net worth.
Yeah.
Because the value is in the encouragement. the values in the conversations, the values, and just like that. It's like that combined with you're the average of the 5 people you hang around. They're kind of very similar.
100%.
But if you want a bigger standard for your life, surround yourself with better people.
Yeah.
Different people, because everybody has value. Okay. That's one thing. It's really hard when you're talking about self-development and for lack of a better term, personal gain and high performing people. You have to be very careful not to devalue people that aren't in that same operating in 100%. The same space.
And that's why I said that. I don't mean to come off as a dick or
it's
as this egotistical, prideful, like
that's not.
I'm just passionate that I'm not trying to put other people down.
That just because one person is doing more than the other person, that doesn't devalue either person. What we're talking about is the effort and the struggles it takes to just execute X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Everybody has value and equal value.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Some people choose not to tap into that. They have the potential because God created us all equal. Like, let's not forget that.
Yeah.
God created us all equal.
Right.
Okay. But then you go back to there's a parable of the vineyard master went on a trip. He gave 3 of his employees 3 different, they call them talents but basically I look at it as coins. I'm going to give you 3. I'm going to give you 2. I'm going to give you 1. I'm going on a trip. Go invest these wisely. The first person with 3 went out and tripled his return, brought it back. When the master came back, says, "Hey, I invested it. I tripled your investment in me. Here you go. Good job." The second one doubled it. The third one operated out of fear and said, "I don't want to lose this, so I'm going to bury it in the ground."
Yeah.
He comes back. He says, "Hey, you should be proud of me that I didn't lose what you gave me." And he was the one that got
only gave me this
the most. Yeah. Because you didn't even try. Yep. I gave you the opportunity for something, and it gives a feeling of you would have been better off to have lost it all because you would at least try.
Yeah. It's that anti-victim mentality, right?
Yep.
Use what you have.
Yep.
For your own power and gain, right? Don't play the poor me victim game because it's not going to gain you anything, right? You're going to sit on the sideline.
Right.
At least go and try. If you fall, you fall. But what did we learn from falling?
Yeah.
Right. We learned maybe how to avoid that next time or how to prolong it to where it doesn't take as long until we fall again. And that's powerful, man. I like that.
Yeah. So, I've found such great, like, just joy with this podcast because I've really gotten an idea to see, like, man, I got some pretty good friends.
Yeah. Because
if you think about it, like, a lot of the people that I've had on here have been my friends. It's like, man, I got such a great net worth of friendships.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to be any different conversation than somebody that's had, much different success in their life.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, because it comes down to mentality and mindset, motivation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So me and you can have a killer conversation. It's like, that's why I align this the same way, because anybody can listen to the conversation we had and be like, dude, that was fire.
Yeah. I hope so, right? Yeah. At least bits and pieces of it. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure we went off on tangents
but that's okay because that's how normal conversations go.
Yeah, true. That's why I was asking if you wanted to prep before we started just jumping.
No, we're going to jump.
We're just going to jump and we're going to see where it takes us. Yeah.
So Nate, you are how old?
Ah, man, 31.
You're 31.
How old are you? You're old.
33.
All I know is you're older. I just want to make that note.
So you're 31.
Yeah.
You've got 2 kids, a third kid on the way.
Yes.
You've been married for how many years?
Since 2014.
14. So eight and a half years.
Yep.
You've been in life insurance, investment banking space. And then 2019, you said you just finally pulled the plug on getting into real estate. So.
Yeah, I think 2019 was really that knowledge gaining year.
Yeah,
I'm going to.
When did you pull the plug on your first investment?
First investment house would have been 2020.
2020. What was that?
Was
that the mobile home?
No, No, that was the duplex.
Okay.
And that was my first one. I still have that one. Yeah, I mean, it was only, not even 3 years ago at this point.
Right.
But yeah, I still have that one. And it's been a great little first snowball effect, and I've now since been able to take equity out of that and buy another place with it. And
so how many doors do you have right now?
Right now I have 6.
And you've exchanged a couple in that time. You've bought and sold some other pieces.
Yeah, so I had 8 this summer.
You had 8 this summer.
Yeah, sold a couple to be able to basically build up some cash for another multifamily is the plan. I like the multifamily game, which multifamily, for those that don't know, it's basically 2 to 4 units. 5 units plus is obviously multifamily as well, but that's going to be a whole other like ballpark. You have to go commercial on 5 plus, but 2 to 4 is kind of that perfect avenue that the normal investor can go find without much competition. Because 2 to 4 units, you're not having the first time home buyers or a normal home buyer buy those, right? Again, because they don't know the trick of house hacking. And then you also don't have the major investment firms or investment companies buying 2 to 4 units. They want 100 to 500, right?
Yeah.
So you have that little niche area of very little competition, realistically. So I love that avenue. And I mean, it's awesome. You can buy a house and there's already 3 renters, or there's going to be 3 renters paying for the mortgage. So the cash flow is a little bit better. What if a unit's vacant? Well, heck, I can have 2 units vacant in my triplex and the bills are still going to get paid. Right. And that it takes away a little bit of that like fear that someone might have. Yeah. Reduce the liability. It makes the numbers a little bit better.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in 2 years, I went to basically up to 8 units, sold a couple this summer. So now I'm down to 6. But I am ahead of game. I mean, my game plan was to buy like 2 a year. So if we just look at the 6 I have right now, in 2 years, I really have done essentially 3 a year, just averaging it out.
Yeah.
Realistically, this year it was more like 6 this year. And then back down to 4, selling the 2. But yeah, so I mean, I'm ahead of schedule, which is fun, and that's where a whole nother episode can be on the snowball effect of real estate. Is once you get the first one, it's actually quite easy after that, because A, you know what you're doing, but B, you have so many different places to take other people's money and buy yourself assets. And that's what I'm really seeing is after the first and the second deal, the opportunity just grows. Not only the amount that you can buy, but how often you can do it.
Right.
Like you just have cash more readily available to be able to do that. So
if somebody had, because I think this is a number for anybody, it doesn't matter who you are, what space you're in. If you have to sell everything and liquidate and work a little bit extra, you can come up with 10 grand.
Oh yeah.
The difference is how much are you willing to sacrifice? Let's say somebody has $0 in their bank account.
Okay.
If you really wanted it that bad enough, you could sell everything you own. I'm talking about TV, vehicle, everything.
Yeah.
Sell everything you own. Work a couple hours, work a little bit more. Don't spend as much on stuff that doesn't pay you back. You can come up with 10 grand in a reasonable time frame.
Yeah.
If somebody had 10 grand available to them, what would you do with that? What's the first thing you would do if they wanted to go towards real estate investing?
If they wanted to go into real estate?
Yeah.
I mean,
let's say somebody comes to you and they says, Nate, I got 10 grand. What do I do with it?
Love it. Seriously, we need series 2 on this episode. So, I mean, my first thought is, okay, 10 grand. It's going to depend on if that's enough to buy a house on your own, right? Let's say it's your first time house. You have enough. 10 grand will buy you, that'll buy you a $200,000 house, right? If you're putting 5% down. It won't probably buy you an investment house because you're going to need more like 20-25%. So my thought is if you have 10 grand, you can never get enough knowledge. So go spend $8 of that 10 grand on buying Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Okay. Zinger.
Bam. And you still have $8 less than 10 grand. Okay. Yeah. So you basically still have 10 grand. I would, and I actually have a list of like other ways to do it, right? So you don't have to have 20-25% down, right? If you did the house hack, or it's your first time house, or you only have to put 3 to 5% down, you can do that, right? With 10 grand, you're good. Or find other people like you that have 10 to 20 grand and partner with them. If you partner with someone that also has 10 grand, well, now your company that you just created has $20,000. Now, if you need 20% down, well, you can actually go buy $100,000 investment house.
Right.
It might just be a single family, and maybe it is a duplex, right?
Right.
You got that ball started. So then you have your own little company. You have only half of the loss potential or the half of the risk, but you got started, right? You own 50% of something. It's better than never doing anything. Mark Cuban says that, a bite of what does he say? A bite of a watermelon is better than a grape. Right? Because you can take a way bigger bite out of the watermelon, and you're going to have more than taking a bite of a grape, to where you're getting started, and that's just going to be a snowball effect, because now you and your partner, whether or not you continue together, you have an asset. You can sell it down the road, you can refi it, use the equity, and then maybe that equity just gained you each 20,000. You only put in 10. Your renter just paid you back probably within a year or two if you're doing it right and you're cash flowing.
Right.
And then now you each have 20 grand. So now your company has 40 grand to spend. Now you're going to go buy a better one or a bigger one or more units. And I think that's the thing that people miss, is they don't find other lenders, like other there's a lot of people that have cash money that want to invest, but they don't have the will to do it themselves. You can go find your wealthy uncle that has all this cash, and you say, hey, what if I did all the work? You just loaned me this. I pay you X amount in interest. He's pumped. He's going to get way more interest than at the bank. Maybe he didn't want to risk anything. And if you show him the platform and you show him that it's going to work, and here's the numbers on this investment property, maybe you don't have to put any money into it. You get a hard money lender to do it for you. You just pay him an interest rate like you would a bank, and now you have no debt. And you're just, so 10 grand's a hard one to really, I guess, get back to your question.
Well, the reason, and I knew it was going to be a hard number, but it's achievable for anybody.
It is. There's other ways to do it.
So what I'm trying to point out,
you have to think outside the box.
Yes, you have to think outside the box. And what I'm trying to point out is it's doable no matter who and where you are at.
100%.
You just have to.
Even if you had 5 grand, go find 3 buddies that also have 5 grand.
Right.
If you already own a house, you guys, if you already own a house, you're sitting on a ton of equity that the bank is loaning out at 20% that you're letting them have. You have your own cash and you have your own equity that you are not actually using for your own benefit. You're letting the bank have it. And, not giving financial advice, because I probably shouldn't be with a podcast. I don't know, but look at that, right? Like, look at what maybe you are already sitting on. If you already own a house, how much equity do you have in it?
Yeah.
If you can take 80% of it out, well, heck, what does 80% of your equity look like? Maybe you have way more cash than you thought, and you didn't think outside the box because you were too scared of interest rates. Well, yeah, again, if the numbers don't lie, right? If the numbers work and your tenants will pay you more than what you owe monthly, then sweet. Who cares how much debt you have if someone else is paying for it?
Right.
If I have $3 million in debt, but I'm making $4 million off of it in that time frame of paying it off, sweet. I don't care.
Yeah.
Right? I don't. Someone else is paying. I'm not paying anything. Someone else is paying it to give me a free house.
Right. That's huge.
Yeah, dude. Good stuff.
Awesome, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was fun.
We'll do this again.
I'm glad to finally be on, halfway through season 2. No, I think we need to have a follow-up on diving specifics, man.
No,
There's way too much we went over. I love it, though.
I do. And
Great stuff.
This year, I'd really like to be able to record a bunch.
Yeah.
In before May hits, because then I can schedule them out.
There you
and the podcast doesn't actually stop for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I like it.
So I've already got 5. Yours will be the 5th for this season.
Yeah.
And if I can do at least 2 a week, then I can schedule them out.
There you go.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So 2, that's 8 in a month.
Yeah.
That gives me 8 in 1 month, gives me 2 months. So really I need 3 a week probably to do the whole
thing. I mean, I think too is, if anything sparked anybody's mindset, if it was just a little snippet one of us said, or maybe it's a topic that we brushed on but didn't dive enough into for you, hit one of us up. Right. I mean, hit one of us up. We can have an episode diving deeper into specifics or just one-on-one discussion of maybe some, what direction to take. Kind of like that. Okay, I have 10 grand. What do I do?
Right.
All right. Well, how do I find a hard money lender? All right. Well, that's a whole other conversation.
Well, it doesn't always have to be an hour-long episode either.
No.
Like you can get great value in 20 to 30 minutes.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean? It doesn't always have to be that. So I've actually got another one of these mics coming.
Nice.
And that camera is mobile, and I've got a laptop. So my idea is to take a mobile, to be able to take the podcast mobile.
Love it.
And these mics will sound a lot better than that one, because that one kind of picks up, like it'll pick up
the dog and
coming
stuff.
in and out, the dogs, and so. But
it may be fun, because you're going to be videoing it too, is almost do like a podcast / tutorial. Like we could almost do it in one of my units, like right, like literally do it in my unit and be like, well, what happens if this happens?
Yeah,
almost like a Q&A of like, what did you do with this issue, or what did you do with, like, and you can do it with your construction thing, to where you could almost show it.
So what you're talking about is starting a YouTube channel.
100%. You and I, yeah. It's just gonna be called You and I.
You and I.
No, I mean, I think that'd be an interesting concept, because there's so many tutorials on YouTube that people want to learn how to do this or see this. But if we're almost doing it I said almost a lot there.
Yeah.
If we're doing it like,
did you see what Sarah Brower's doing?
No.
Well, dude, Sarah Brower and her husband have they're like Insta famous right now. They've got some sort of
she's doing what, photography?
No, they've got like over 100,000 followers. They make like, they were just in the one of the local news feeds. They made like 6 figures off of their YouTube channel.
What?
Yeah, they're doing a bunch of remodel house hacking.
Really?
Oh yeah, look them up. It's their Instagram handle is, I think it's We Are Jamie and Sarah.
We Are Jamie and Sarah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I saw that the other day. I'm like, no kidding.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity that I don't know if we're still recording, but I think there's a lot of opportunity with something like that, where it's almost like a tutorial or a how-to, but we're almost like we're doing it there.
Yeah.
Like we can literally sit up at 2 chairs.
Yeah.
And like video it in the room. I don't know. I mean, almost be kind of interesting, but then almost we can walk through the before and the afters, or hey, we ran into this. What do you do?
Yeah.
How do you overcome it?
You almost have to capture the moment when it happens, because the conversations that are valuable, they happen just like, and you don't know that they're actually happening.
Yeah.
And so if you can kind of realize, hey, like, let's record what we're talking about right now, because that's going to be valuable for somebody else. Like, we don't have to commercialize it. We don't have to act different than what we are. Like, people are out there wanting to know what we're talking about.
Right.
And honestly, that's the whole purpose for this podcast, is that I tend to get in a lot of conversations that are extremely valuable. I'm like, oh man, why do I have to be the only one that hears this?
Yeah. Well, we touched on this too, is like, well, a lot of people are probably going to have the thought of, okay, you say if the numbers don't lie, well, what numbers? How do you run those numbers? What
does that mean?
Right. What's the algorithm, or what's the process? Like what? So I feel like it almost be fun. We literally sit in like a rental unit.
Yeah.
Just like, that's the scene, whatever.
Yeah.
And then we just simply do that.
Yeah.
We go through the numbers.
Yeah.
Like, what are the numbers I'm looking at?
Yep.
What numbers do I want to see if I think it's a good deal or not? Run through the actual numbers that the house that we're sitting in.
Yep.
We can put those numbers down, maybe on a whiteboard behind us, and literally just go through it.
Yeah.
And give credit to where credit's due with Bigger Pockets, which is really where I learned that type of stuff. But it'd almost be fun, because then we'd have like the mobile setting of it.
Yep.
Of this house right here. This is this unit, this unit, this unit. Here's my expenses. You name it. But that'd be kind of a fun breakdown.
Yeah.
And like you said, it'd be like 20 minutes.
Yeah. Easy.
We could talk for an hour, but cut out the last 40.
Awesome. Thanks, Nate.
Yeah, dude. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
For sure.
I gotta pee